Hello. This week I've got to break off from working through my pile really because I'm running so low on some of my basic supplies. I'm running out of some of the paints and I've really got to fund it through the hobby. So I'm going to take a little bit of time out now to just make a little bit of scatter terrain really that I can sell and raise a little bit of money towards the hobby. So I thought I'd bring you along on the journey. And all I'm doing at the minute, sorry about the noise, is cutting some of this insulation foam down to workable sizes. As you can see, it's very powdery, this stuff. That's why I've got the sheet out, trying to capture it all. And at the minute, all I'm doing is getting the blocks ready, and then I shall do the carving. So I'm just sawing through these offcuts to get the basic size that I need for the platforms I'm going to make. So let me get all these done. I'm only going to do about 10 of them for now because I really have got quite a lot to do. But I'll bring you back when I get to the later stage. So basically, when it comes to carving them, all I'm really trying to do is think about gaming. Thinking about trying to make it interesting, so you've got somewhere for troops to be. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it, really. If it's not playable, there's no point making it. So while I'm doing it, I'm trying to think of, soldiers can hide there, or they can move behind that bit, or they can climb up onto that and go to this piece. And, thinking about, cover or position or height. But at the same time, you want to make it, so it's like a natural finish. I mean, at the minute, it looks very contrived, very blocky, and the aim now is to try and make that look more natural, so you don't want it so it's just squared edge going up, going up, going up. So what I'll do now is actually try to make that look more natural, and this is where you can use breaking it to actually give you that. And think about the straight lines as well, because you don't want straight lines because you don't see them in nature. And see, it's still coming up to a square. Now I could go out taking bits out this front piece, but if I did, it'd still look essentially square. So this is where I'm going to make a few differences. So first of all, I'm going to cut into it that far. And break it out. Can you see how that's looking a little bit more natural? But you don't want everything the same. So when it comes to this piece, I want to leave part of it tall. And then even on the levels, have another level. So it looks more natural, more organic. And that bit, it's almost begging to come down. Too square, trim a bit off. And trim down and in, so it looks more natural rather than a straight line again. So it's keeping all of these things in mind while you're shaping it, and at the same time the playability. I mean, if you think about this piece, for instance, that a sniper could take cover or whatever soldier you've got behind that bit, just coming round and going into that bit there to fire out round that way. It's not something you plan. You kind of do it as you're working on it, really, and then think about it. Once you've cut a piece out, think, how can I make that look more natural? Now at the minute, I'm thinking that this bit, because we've still got quite a few square edges, so I think here I'm going to do something a bit more dramatic and come in a bit more than normal. I'm going to drop an edge down on this side, look. Think about the soldiers that you want to put there. And suddenly you've got an edge for somebody else to stand on. That in so it stands out a bit more around this edge as well, so suddenly that stands out. I mean, obviously I want to keep it to the basic size of the platform that I want, so don't want to lose too much of the structure, because that's what we're building it for. But you can afford to lose bits that are going to make a hiding place or a place of cover. And now on this one, I'm thinking a drop down ledge. See, now that's another level that you can use, and that's where that's what I'm thinking of. So there's more places to place figures, and it's got more adaptability then for different battles. You might use it one way in one battle and then another way in another. Back to just chipping away to get your rock faces as well. Just check it for the base size. Going to be a little bit too proud at the minute, so we've got to take a little bit off. Don't forget that straight edge where you took it out as well, because that don't look right. This is just a way that, you're thinking as you go along, really. Let it suggest, you know, where to cut next. You know, just using your imagination. And that's why I'm going round it now and just checking for straight edges. You see, like, look at that. That doesn't look natural. Same on this one. A little straight edge there. Bit one there. So I'm just going round it now, taking out anything that looks too straight. That don't look right because it's sitting on top. See this bit? So what I'm going to do is take that in. Now it looks more natural. Right, that's looking pretty good. I can't see no straight edges that I'm unhappy with at the minute. Let's just check it against the base. Now it fits, look. And it's taking up pretty much all of it. You just got a little bit of surround, you know, where troops can go. And that's where I'm aiming for. And then the next thing to keep in mind is, obviously this is like one of the 10 that I'm doing, is I don't want another one to look like this one. So I do something completely different to it first, so it can't possibly look like this. And then adapt that one using the same technique. Right. I'll carry on getting all these done and then I'll bring you back at a later stage. So the next stage, I've sealed these onto my MDF bases, and I've used cork to do that with, which is just, let me just grab it. Decorator's cork. It's the kind of stuff you use to fill the gaps between skirting boards and the wall, so it's a bit flexible. And I've used that to put it onto the base, and I've also gone round and filled any gaps. And that makes it a nice solid fix to the base. And this stuff, you can pick it up relatively cheap. So that's what I used for that stage. Now the next stage, just to make, if this was, you know, the blue foam, it'd be firm enough to start working with, but because this is that insulation stuff, I like to toughen it up a little bit by using some plaster. Again, it's just multi-purpose plaster, the kind of thing that you fill cracks and holes in your plasterwork with. And then I mix that, not quite 50-50, but quite generously, with some PVA. And then what I'm going to do is, I've got one of these cheap brushes from these brush sets you can get from Works. And if I show you this, just get it. What I've done is I've stirred that until it's like a very thick mixture. You can see how that's dripping. And then basically all we're going to do is paint this on it quite generously. And this is going to give us, it's going to toughen it up. And then the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to give us some more texture. Because what I do, once I've got it on, is stipple it like this. Right, let me get a bit more of this done and then I'll bring you back when I'm getting towards the end of it. Right, so basically, as I said, I've stippled it all over now, giving it a thorough coat. You can see the stippled effect against the light, look. Once that dries, it's going to be a lot firmer than it was. But that won't be the end of it, because obviously what I've got to do then is I've got to paint up these rock faces, and also where there's going to be any grass or soil in a different colour. But what I tend to do, just to finish off, is I use a little bit of Mod Podge with the paint, mixed in with the paint, and that just gives it, you know, a final seal and makes it a little bit harder as well. It just makes it a bit more robust when you're playing with it, really, so you don't get bits of foam chipping off. So what I've got to do now is I've got to do the same to all the others and then let them dry. It don't take too long, and then they'll be ready for the painting process. Right, I'll bring you back when I get to the next stage. So now that you know, the stippled plaster has dried, the next thing I do is just paint an undercolour, like a block colour on different areas of it. So obviously on these rock faces I'm just going to go with a grey on this occasion, and on the top sometimes I might go with a green if I know it's all going to be grass, but then alternatively I can use a brown as well. So what I've done is I've got my 3 pots of basically I've used you know, the little tester pots that you can buy cheap from DIY stores. I think some of mine were 50p. I think they've gone up a bit more recently, but whenever they have a discount I'll go through and look for some of the basic key colours like your greys and your browns and your yellows and greens, and then I mix them all together with some Mod Podge, and that forms my basic colour, and it just keeps it really cheap. So let's start with a grey. So this is all pre-mixed with Mod Podge, which will just, it'll help make it a little bit more robust. And it gives it a nice basic block colour as well that we can add to. But you can see the rock, you know, the stippling that we did with the plaster now is giving it a really good texture. Now on some of these lower levels, I might decide to go over it with grey or brown or even green, depending on what I'm going to put on it. If I'm going to put stones and gravel, then I'll probably go with a grey. If I'm going to put a bright grass, I'll probably start with bits of brown and then mix in a green in the central area. But initially what I'm doing is just getting the rocks done first, the face rocks. Having a quick look round it, make sure that I've not missed anything obvious. Right, so what I'll do now is I'll let that dry, and while it's drying I'll go on to paint all the other ones up to the same standard, and then when they're all dry I'll come back and have a look at this and decide which parts I'm going to colour on the top surfaces, you know, the flat surfaces. But initially I just want to get all the walls greyed up first. Right, I'll crack on now and get the rest of these done, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so that's basically all of them painted, and it's just a matter of waiting for them to dry now, really, thoroughly, before I apply glue and start putting on, you know, any scatter or anything. I mean, it's going to be the odd patch that shows through. I can see as that one's dry now. The green one, there's a bit of a patch. But it won't really matter if when I'm putting scatter over it. If I think it's going to be a problem, I should just touch one area up as I do it. But essentially, that's them now waiting for the next stage. Right, I'll bring you back when we move on. So now that it's totally dry from that initial paint, what I've done now is I've mixed up a bit of a dark grey wash, and you can see how watery this is, but it's still got enough cling to cover the side of the pot, but it's running back down, and that's ideal because that's going to, even though it looks like we're covering it completely, it's going to let part of that light grey show through, and it'll give it a granite looking appearance, and that's what I'm aiming for. So if I just get my brush a bit wet, and I'll show you what I mean. Initially it looks like you're covering it completely. bit. Just lift that out of the way. Can you see that? I don't know whether because it's glistening, because it's wet. But you get little specks of the white, of the light grey showing through. And it gives it a really good look of granite, especially when it dries out. And then what I'll do, when that's thoroughly dry, you know, when it comes to start decorating this, is I'll be giving this a very dry brush of white to pick out more of the specks. Well, white, probably a light grey, and that'll just add to the effect. And as you can see, as opposed to it being uniform grey, it's starting to look more like stone. Like I say, it's hard to tell at the minute because obviously, oh, I missed a bit there, look. It's hard to tell at the minute because it's wet, so it's glistening, but when that dries, it'll certainly give it its rock appearance. Right, okay then, I'll get the rest of them done now, and I'll bring you back when I get to the next stage. So now that these have dried, what I'm going to do now is give them a dry brush with a lighter grey, just to bring out a bit more of the detail. Basically, it doesn't matter what way you brush it, you'll pick out the detail anyway. The main thing is to make sure that you've not got too much on your brush, otherwise you just find yourself painting it light grey. There you go. You can see there's one that's not been done. I mean, it doesn't look too bad because you've got that lighter grey coming through from, you know, the wet wash coat that we gave it. But once you do that to it, then it really starts to take on a rock appearance. And it's light as a feather. Right. I'm going to carry on getting these done. I'll do the same to the bigger ones. When that's done, we can start looking then at putting some scatter and stuff on it. So I'll bring you back then. Right, so now that everything's dried off on all of this, the next thing is to start adding some of the scatter. And what I'm going to do, because I will put some stones and grit in some places, but initially what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the top surfaces on all my hills where I want some grass. That ain't to say that I won't maybe add a few stones or grit in there, but I want to get the grass down first. So just painting it with this PVA. I'm doing it with such a small brush purely because I just want to control it. I don't want it running down the front onto the rocks where I don't want it. So I'm trying to be a bit more controlled with it, and I probably could have done with a bit of a bigger brush, but on the basis that it's got, you know, such shaped edges, it'd be very easy for me to spill it everywhere. I'm going to do is I'm not going to leave it till I get all the way around because it'll be drying off. Right, now the other thing that I want to do with the grass is go round the bottom edges as well, which I'm certainly going to need the finer brush for, although on here where I might have some bits of grit eventually, I might leave this a little bit patchy just in front of it because I want that to be more of a grit mix. Right, well you can see how I'm going with this now. I won't drag you along because it's pretty boring just watching me do it. But what I will do is I'll bring you back at various stages and show you what I'm adding to it. And then we can take a look at, you know, when I start adding the grits as well. Right, I'll bring you back soon. Right, so now that the basics were dried, I've been putting on some different scatters and bushes and things like that, just to bring it to life a little bit and make it look a little bit more realistic. I'm not going to overkill it. I've probably put quite a lot on this one. There's a few bushes here and there, look. And I put a mixture of grit and grass and soil on the main lift going up. There's a couple of other bits here, like, you know, where I get something that I want to cover, all I'm doing is putting a blob of glue. I think with this one we'll have a bush. Glue that in, and then I give it a quick spray of some watered down PVA just to start to bed it down. I will give them all a final wash when I've done them all. But basically I'm using a selection of resources, you know, to just give it a little bit more life. And if I have got any imperfections anywhere, there's an ideal placement. But the rest, you just, you know, try and imagine what looks right, you know, so I'm trying to make each one look a little bit different, but that they'd all tie in. And the main thing is thinking about how, like I said from the beginning, you know, how it's going to work as a piece of scenery. You want this to kind of blend in with other things. I mean, the only reason, you know, why I've not put bigger bushes or trees or anything like that on any of these is because obviously I'm doing these to kind of raise a bit of cash for my hobby, and it makes it a bit awkward in the post. And there's a kind of a ceiling on things like this, so I just keep it relatively simple. But I'm pretty pleased with the outcome of it. Anyway, I'll bring another one in, and when I'm about to start it, I'll bring you back. Right, so on this one, I want to keep these sweeping ports relatively simple this time. I'm not going to put any soil or anything on it, but what I might do is around the edges I'm going to put a few specks of you know, small stones and debris. So I'll just put a bit of glue. What I'm doing is I'm taking them out of this one, which is a bit of a mix. On this one, what I'm going to do is I've got some slightly bigger stones. Put a few more bits of stone here as well. Keep them small on this one. And I think on this bit I'm going to have a bit more clump foam because it's such a big area. so turning my attention to the top, I need something that's just going to break that green up a bit. So I'm going to scatter some of this, because if I sprinkle bits of it here and there, it'll look like, you know, weed and small bits of growth coming up. What I try and do is, in some areas, it'll be a bit more, and then loosely scattered around. See what I mean? So you've got slightly bigger areas of it, and then singular little bits. It just looks a little bit more natural. A bit on here as well. Right, let's have a look around the other side. There's quite a big area on the corner here, so I think I'm going to put another little bit of bush on that. Not too much, just a little bit in the near the rock. Right. There are odd bits where I've got tufts as well, but I'm not going to use them on this one. But that's what it's looking like. I don't want to overdo it. But the more colours it's got, the more mats it's going to fit in with as well. Right, what I'm going to do now, because I've got quite a few to do, is I'll crack on with a few of them, and then we'll have a bit of a look at them, and any little finishing touches that I want to do. Right, so I'll bring you back in a bit. The other stuff's starting to dry now, and I'm just putting a few final touches, a bit of tufts here and there, just to give it a bit more definition. I don't want to go too mad with these. Just want to, you know, just have a different texture on there really. So it, you know, there's lots to look at and play around. There we go. Just bring that up so you can see it a bit better. It's nothing much, it just adds just a little bit to it, that's all. I might put some on this side just here as well. Yeah. So just a few just there, look. Little batch there. Like I say, I don't want to overkill it. I mean, there's plenty of things to look at. So I think for that one, that'll be it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all through them and just add the odd tuft here and there. And what I will do when they've thoroughly dried is I'll give them another blast of watered down PVA just to make sure it's all sealed. You know, I don't want anything falling off. And that'll be them done. Right, I'll go and get that done and then I'll bring you back. Right, so the final step with these terrain pieces is to give them a real good soak with a watered down PVA with a bit of flow in it. You know, drop of fairy liquid will do. Just something so it penetrates all the material you've used. As you can see how soaked they are. But that'll all dry out and it will dry back to its natural colour. But at least then it keeps everything firm. Right, so what I'll do now is they're going to be drying for quite some time, as you can imagine. So what I'll do is I'll bring them back, and what I'll do is I'll photograph them and we'll wind up the video looking at the photographs. Right, so I've took photographs of most of the ones that I've made. Just for a bit more information, the grass and that I used some rough pasture. I think it was by Jarvis, but I also mixed in with it some scatters I made myself with sawdust and different colours of green, basically so it'd have a mixture of greens so it didn't look too uniform. And then the clump foam again is some of it's homemade, some of it's from people like Jarvis and Geek Gaming. Right, well I hope you've enjoyed it, I hope you found it instructive. If you do have a go at making, you know, one yourself, I'd love to see it. You know, if you could submit it, you know, to my Facebook page or Facebook group. I'd love to see, you know, the different ones that you come up with. But anyway, if you have liked it, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.